So you're getting into this e-commerce business and you're just getting started and you want to know what kind of scams are out there so you don't fall for them. Well, let's go through some examples on how you cannot fall for some of these scams by introducing some of them and also showing you how to avoid them. So going into the first section, I'll be talking about the sourcing scams from my experience in China. For those of you that don't know, I've been living in China for almost 5 years, and I've had experience talking to the locals, the suppliers, and warehouses about how to run logistics for B2B and B2C e commerce businesses. So let's go into the first scam that I'm going to introduce you guys. This is called the bait and switch. Now, these aren't the official names, so don't heart me if you Google them and they're not the official name. This is just something that I called them based on my experience. And this has actually happened to me personally. So, what is the bait and switch? Essentially, it's somebody gaining your trust in the beginning until they find you in a vulnerable state and then kind of take you to another direction where you can get scammed. Now, this is used in car sales a lot. But let me give you an example of car sales. If you're looking for a car of a specific model, they kind of get you away from that model and then bait you to go buy like another worse model to make them more commission or whatever. But in the case of sourcing, they maybe build your trust with some small orders, nothing crazy with bulk items, maybe one or two items. And then later on, they suggest another method for procurement or paying them for bulk orders, let's say once your business gets started. So, have you ever heard of a supplier mention these? And if you have, they are definitely red flags. This is a limited offer only, and you can only take advantage of this if you pay me directly on WeChat or Alipay. A lot of the times, these scammers would try and take you outside of the platforms to make the payment. These platforms are there to protect you. If you use 1688 or Pinduoduo or Taobao, placing the order on those platforms can ensure they can monitor and track the status of the order. As soon as you take it outside the platform, they can't help you at all, and you are more likely of being scammed. So if you hear things like, hey, we're only offering this one-time deal during this specific time, take it now, and then we'll go ahead and do the order. And there are a lot of evil people in this world, and they do aim to scam people when it comes to sourcing. And this isn't just in China, this is worldwide. And although the percentage is low, once you get into the business, you may encounter this in the future. So, something to be aware of. So, let me share from my personal experience how I got fooled doing this. I was working with someone that actually reached out to me. Maybe they're one of my subscribers. Who knows? Maybe they're going to watch this video in the future. Whatever. So he gained my trust by doing a couple transactions on PayPal. And then after like 3 or 4 transactions, everything went smooth according to how it was supposed to be planned. He wanted to do a different payment method that was also like a PayPal service, but it's kind of informal. And I kind of fell for it because he said, here's the receipt. You can check this platform. It was called Zoom at the time, XOOM. And it showed that he made the payment. I received a text message. But in that platform, you can actually delete the transaction after it happens. So as soon as they say, here's a proof of the posted payment, then they can right afterwards delete it and then just run away with the money after the service has been done. And I should have seen the red flags, but I didn't. So that's why I'm sharing this with you guys now so you can see the red flags. I did lose a lot of money on that order. And he was saying like, hey, I got to account for all my taxes. I have customers waiting for me. They expect a 24-hour turnaround time. There were these kinds of conversations that he were having that I should have been triggered. Like, hey, you're kind of rushing me. Like, I don't know if I'm going to receive the money in my bank account. And then I had to make a report and eventually call my bank and get them involved. And it was a headache. So don't fall for the bait and switch for the sourcing scam where they give you a carrot. Like, hey, I'll give you some good deals. And then I want to order a large amount from you and they want to take it outside the platform. Now, if you built a relationship with a supplier and you have a contract in place and you have the supplier information and you know their address and you verified their address, you're safer at that point taking the purchase outside of the platform. Like let's say Alibaba, you're safer taking the purchase like on Alipay or either the direct bank transfer. There are actually services in China to help you and protect you if there's an actual contract in place, but that is for another live stream. So that's the first one that I've experienced sourcing here from China. The second one is a really sad one, but it still happens. It still happens to this day. It's called the empty package scam. So you make the order, and let's say like you're not in China, right? So you can't physically see the product. And I always suggest you have some kind of a third party looking at the product before you send it overseas, because if they know you're overseas and you're not in China, it just makes it more difficult for them to be able, or more difficult for you to be able to handle it. So what is the empty package scam? Let's say I order a product, whether it's like a phone, a pair of shoes, or let's say specific shirts, whatever. It can be anything. Well, you can actually create a tracking number and say it's been shipped without actually sending a product. And usually there's more people on this scam than just one person, but it can actually be done with one person if they have the right channels. So they actually send the product, and in the system it says the product has been shipped. And after it's been shipped, you see the tracking number on Taobao. Once they say, oh yeah, it's on the way, it's almost to my forwarder and everything. And then they rush you to go ahead and accept the product immediately. So this would be a red flag when it's saying, hey, it's already in the system. You can see that the product has been signed for when it says so in the system, but in reality, it's just an empty bag, and there may be a couple people in on the deal. So this has happened to some of my subscribers before, and I can show you how to prevent it later on. But let me show you an example what I mean by what they send an empty package. So I'm going to show you a short video. This is one of my partners I use for shipping overseas. I have a few partners that do this, and they offer good inspection services before they ship the product overseas. So hopefully this highlights the importance of you using a third party or inspection service to be able to run your e-commerce business. So here you can see, good thing that they film everything to control liability and risk, but they sent the 3 packages. They're empty bags. There's nothing in them. You can see he's looking inside. He's like, what the heck? Like, I'm receiving these items, there's nothing in them. So he calls his manager to verify, because if you have more eyes on, it's just better. And this is what the partner sent me. And fortunately, one of my subscribers decided to use this service, and they were actually saved from a scam. They were using PayPal to pay the supplier. And they're like, oh yeah, the supplier is well known. People trust them. People trust them for many transactions. They've been doing business for a long time. And the transaction amount was not cheap either. It was like $1,000 order for a product. And thankfully, they used this service, because then they were able to file a claim on PayPal. They used this evidence saying, hey, the product was not shipped properly. Here you can see the proof. And they even send us the label of the packaging saying this is the tracking number. You can see it right here. And it actually saved the client $1,000 because they used the shipping service. Now, the client did talk to the supplier directly in English. That's it, just telling them, hey, you're not in China. So it gives them an opportunity to take advantage. But you can see here, it's important to find the right partner to be able to check the products before they actually ship outside of China. So please don't fall for this. So the third scam I'm going to cover for today is a group scam. And this can be quite dangerous because it's essentially corrupt. This is where the supplier has connections with the courier or maybe even the freight forwarder to work a scam. And usually when you have 2 or 3 people involved, they know how the systems work and they can take advantage. So let me walk you through a scenario that's actually happened to me and one of my colleagues in my job for the group scam. So you have a supplier, or in this case, a person that's selling the product. Sometimes you're buying secondhand. It's not an official supplier, but maybe like some random person selling a product. And they're selling a product. In my example, we were reselling Sumi statues. These are like high quality statues from anime. You can buy like Naruto, Dragon Ball. There's tons, right? And we were reselling them. So we found a good deal with a supplier and we paid them. They were using their own courier service because when you sell on these platforms, and this platform was Idlefish, you can actually choose how you ship the item. Whereas on other platforms, you have to use the shipping provided by the platform. So they shipped the product to the courier. And the courier, because they knew about this business, they knew about the high value items, because these weren't cheap statues either. They did a product swap. So they took the package, they kept the packaging the same, but they swapped the actual figurine inside with a fake one. And it was like an obvious fake one. Like they could have done a better job by making sure it was like a fake one that kind of looks the same and hard to tell, but yeah, it was definitely real fake. We also took measures ourselves by putting some things on the statue that are not visible to the naked eye so that we can use a UV light to check because we were very paranoid. But it happened. And then they end up shipping the fake product and saying everything's complete. And when the customer gets the product, then they just accept it as it is. Well, it turns out that after you ship the fake product and you don't check it carefully and it's a fake, then they receive the money. You can't do anything about it, especially if it's high value. A lot of these platforms for high value, they don't want to get involved with the transaction itself. So instead, they ask you to report to the police and file a report to the police. And then it goes through a heavy investigation that can either go nowhere if it's not a large amount, or can actually get the problem solved if it's like a very large amount of fraud and they're scamming a lot of people. And in the end, like both the supplier and the courier share the profits of the order by shipping you a fake product. So these group scams are very dangerous, but I will be showing you ways how to avoid them. Now, I can't guarantee you these ways will completely clear you 100% because there's always a chance that someone's going to abuse a system because they have the right people. Like if you know the person that works for the shipping company, they can probably write a shipment order pretty easily. And then they're the freight forwarder as well, so they can ship the product. They're in control. So essentially it's a corrupt system. Now this doesn't happen often, but it can happen enough that I just want you to be aware. So I just shared my story with you. This is the secondhand platform in China called Xianyu, which has been developed by the same developers of Taobao and 1688 and Alipay. And this is how it went down. And it was eventually a mess that we had to get like the police involved. And it was just something I wish we could have avoided. But just be careful with who you're working with because this could happen to you. So now that you know like the 3 sourcing scams that I kind of talk about, and there's much more. These criminals, I'm going to call them criminals, they get more creative with time. So you just need to always be on your feet and pay attention to the current news on how they do these scams. But how do you avoid this? So before going how do you avoid this, let's thank our sponsor of this video, myself, for a product that may be able to help you with your sourcing business. Are you tired of not being able to pay for the cheapest products on platforms like 1688, Taobao, or Pinduoduo because you don't have Alipay, WeChat Pay, or even a Chinese bank account? Luckily, you can easily now purchase any product you see on these platforms from my website, borderlesscommerce.net, that gives you full access to Chinese platforms without ever stepping foot inside of China. Whether you are using a mobile phone or a desktop computer, you simply copy the product link you want to buy and paste it into the search bar. All the product information will be converted to English, with the price also being converted to dollars. After you add the products to the cart and check out, you can either use my shipping service to ship the product to your destination by checking the shipping estimates tab, or you can use your personal Chinese freight forwarder that you already have a relationship with and can give you better shipping rates to ship it for you. Try today for free by clicking on the link below. So how do you avoid these? I'm going to go through 3 methods on how to avoid these. And if you take these measures all together, your chances of being scammed are very slim, or at least you have measures in place so that if you get scammed, you can get your money back or some money back. Sometimes you may need to get a lawyer involved, which if you need contacts for them, you can reach me via email and I'll send you a lawyer that can help you. But just a warning is that if once you get a lawyer involved, the amount should be at least over 10,000 RMB of a scam. If it's less than that, the juice may not be worth the squeeze. So the first method is checking the business. And I'll be going a little bit in detail on exactly how you'll be able to check the business. But essentially, you want to make sure that they have their business license, that their address on the business license matches what they say that they're selling on their website, and that they actually have a real factory. It's not like a fake factory. I'm sure you heard of the stories of overseas investors that used to visit China for 1 or 2 days and they set up a fake factory with like fake workers. Like you want to avoid that completely and check their business properly. Then you have identification, and I'll show you methods on how you can get identification without, seeming too much like getting into their privacy. But there are ways to get their identification legally and safely before they suspect anything, because you're not trying to do anything suspicious. And then third party involvements. The more people that you have that don't know each other involved in the transaction that are checking the item, the better for you and the better protected you can be. So make sure that you actually start implementing these measures whenever you're trying to search for a supplier for your business. So let's talk about some tools on how to check a company if they're legitimate or not. So right now, I'm going to go into a website called Tianyancha, and it's essentially a platform that you can check businesses for their licenses and their address. So in this example, I'm going to look at their website right here. Tianyancha, right? It's pretty simple. They also have a mobile app. You can open this on your phone or on a desktop. In this example, I'm opening it on my desktop. But if you're on 1688, like this is a random supplier I found for like I don't know what you call this, an adapter to be able to plug in multiple ports into your laptop. And it's not that hard to find the information on these platforms, whether it's Taobao, Pinduoduo, 1688. There's different ways. I'm just going to go through 168 in this example. So on 168, once you click the product, you want to look for supplier information. So here you can click on supplier information. We can click up here on supplier information. And then eventually you'll get to something that looks like this. And if you're using Google Chrome, like I always mention, you can always right click and translate to English if you have it set to English. But this is the factory. And it tells you, okay, they've been in business for 17 years, what products they provide, and it shows you like a virtual tour of the store. But here's where you want to click on the business information. So I recommend you use Translate, but you can click on like the business information here, and then click on like BBB. Just click on the transaction information or the proof of the business, and you'll eventually get to a screen that looks like this. And this is what the business license looks like. So there's two different screens you may get to, but essentially you want a number that looks like this. And it tells you this is their registration for their business. It also tells you their address, their establishment date. So here you can see this company was established in 2009, but this is the magic number you want. And you can see the numbers match here. It's the same supplier. So I'm going to copy this number. I'm going to use the website Tianyancha, and I'm going to paste right here and search. When you search, let's see if I can translate it to English. So I already have good news here. It does say it was established in 2009, and I can understand Chinese and read Chinese, so I see it's the same address that's listed right here. It's the same address, so that's already a good sign. And here it says it's still an operating business. If this is green, that's okay. If it's red, that means like the business is not in operation anymore. I'll try and translate it into English. Depends on my internet connection. There you go. So if it's green, it says, yep, it's still in operation. And you can get the telephone number, the email to get more details about the company. And it makes it very reliable as a method to check the business. But that's one method. I don't suggest you just check the business this one way. There's other ways they can scam you. So something I recommend people is that you offer, kind of like I'm doing right now, I'm live streaming, but instead live stream with the factory. And you want to make sure it's the right person that you're talking to, that you're not just like, they don't just send you videos of their production line or their services. You want to make sure you do a live stream, because there's cases where they can actually pretend that they're doing the service, but it's all fake by videos they have. Like I saw a couple that they just take a video of some iPhones and send it to you and say, yeah, yeah, this is our store. So to kind of make sure they're real, not only do you live stream them, but let's say they disagree to live stream. It's like, fine, 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 fine. We don't have to live stream. You may be busy with your operations. There's another way to check. Say, hey, I have a friend or I have a partner that's in your city. Can you send me your address and I'll have them go visit you to see what kind of operations you run? And this is where they kind of get hesitant. If they don't respond and kind of ignore you after you request this, they're more likely a scam. So I'll give you an example. There was a person that was looking for used PlayStation 4s and they were contacting through WhatsApp. And then he messaged me saying, hey, can you make sure this is a legit company? They're based in Guangzhou. I'm in Guangzhou, by the way. And I would go say, hey, yeah, send me the information of the WhatsApp person and I'll go WhatsApp them. So I ended up messaging them. I was, speaking to them in Chinese. I'm like, hey, where's your company? Let me go visit you. Because your website says your company is here. But when I look up that address on Baidu Maps, which is like the Google Maps of China, it says it's not like an operating store. Like there's no one in there, especially when I check it on Baidu. And then they just ghosted me. They're like, oh, they were offering me these crazy prices at first. But as soon as I asked, hey, can I go visit your factory? Can I go visit your office? They're like, they just ghosted me and ignored me. And then I let the other person know, hey, they're ignoring me. That's not a good sign. Please be careful. And eventually it ended up saving them a few $1,000s because he was about to make a payment for a few $1,000s. And I looked at the pricing of some of the products and they were like way too good to be true. Like, yeah, they sold wholesale, but I was looking like they're selling like 30% of the actual retail price. I'm like, that is just a red flag. I just want to make sure, and that was a method that I used to make sure that the business was actually checked properly and that they're actually a real customer or real business. Another method is to ID the supplier. I don't recommend to go for this method until you've actually had some orders with supplier. A lot of suppliers won't agree to actually do this, and it can be quite risky if you ask for it up front. Like you're a stranger asking for their ID, they're going to be like quite hesitant. But I do recommend this if you want to level up your business with a supplier from like 1 or 2 products to maybe a bulk amount of products. And how would you do this? So when you're ready to actually pay them in bulk and you've done business with them, of course you want to do the live streaming and all that. You want to make sure you live stream with the person that's going to share their ID with you. Same person. And then at this point, with their ID, you tell them, hey, I need your ID card information to be able to send you Western Union, etc. They require your ID information. So can you please send me and go ahead and send you the money? And in most cases, they will agree to send you the product, or not the product, the ID